is it very common that people offer their homes to foster families in America?
No, it's not common at all. It's not common at all. There's actually not enough foster homes. There in America, in the United States, there's about 450,000 children in the foster care system, and there are not nearly enough homes. In fact, child welfare agencies are desperate for more foster parents, and that's just not America. That's in other countries as well. It's a hard time. I'm Dr. John Degarmo, founder and director of the Foster Care Institute located in the United States. Although I work with child welfare agencies and across the world, trying to help children in crisis, children who have been abused, children who have been abandoned, all over the world.
All right. And if you don't mind me asking, how did you become interested in this side of the world? Or
Yeah,
were there any personal
sure.
experiences that led you here, or is it something that you wanted to do?
No, it was something I never wanted to do. Actually, I never dreamed about doing it or thought about doing it. It was really after the death of our first child, who died of a condition called anencephaly, or some people pronounce it anencephaly. It's a condition where the brain or skull never truly formed. And it wasn't until years later when I moved back to the United States from Australia, where I was living there for a number of years, and I was teaching in a rural country high school, and I noticed a lot of kids coming through my classroom who had issues of behavior. They were missing a lot of school. They had really poor academic grades, and I kept wondering, what is going on? Why so many kids in this small town? And then I met a lot of their birth parents, and I recognized that it really started in the home. And so many children were missing school, or they were having poor grades or poor behavior because they were not getting the parental support, or maybe even parental abuse. So I went to my wife, who is from Australia, and I said, we lost our first child. How can we help other kids? And that led to a discussion about foster parenting. And since then, I've really dedicated my life to helping children around the world.
My audience back in Pakistan do not really know the difference between foster parenting and adopting. So if you could just give us like a short difference between them.
Sure. And I've adopted 3 children myself from the foster care system. So when a child is placed into foster care, maybe that's here in America or in other countries, the child is removed from their parental home because perhaps they've been abused, or maybe they've been abandoned, or maybe they've been neglected, or maybe their parents are placed in jail. And the children are placed into a foster home, like myself or other foster parents, for a period of time. And the period of time is dependent upon how long the parents might take to go through parenting classes and get the help that they need, get the stability that they need, so they'll no longer abuse their children or no longer neglect their children. So foster parents care for the children in their home as if they were their own children until the birth parents are ready to take the children back into their home.
It's to begin with, foster parenting relationship is a temporary one, and
Right.
I mean it must be so difficult to sort of invest yourself emotionally and physically and all of that, only to be taken away from that child. And then 2 years is, although it looks short, it looks like a short time, but in terms of having them as a child, it's a huge amount of time, and I'm sure it would have a lot of emotional investment. So how do you deal with it?
Well, you're absolutely right. There is a lot of emotional investment. When the kids come to our homes, they need, I think, 3 things. They need stability, they need structure, and most importantly, they need someone to love them with all of their heart, love them unconditionally. So when the kids do leave our homes, yes, it's very emotional, because it's like losing a member of our family. It's like losing one of our own children. So many times foster parents experience feelings of grief, feelings of loss. And so how do you deal with that? Well, you've really got to take care of yourself, because if you can't care for yourself, then you can't care for the children in need. And there's a number of ways you can do it. You can make sure you find a support group of some kind, people that surround yourself that can help you out. Maybe prayer or meditation is a way you can help. Healthy dieting, exercise, time alone to grieve, allowing yourself time to grieve. Those are some of the ways that we care for ourselves during some very, very difficult time and emotional times.
You might go through like one experience, but when I was researching on you, so I think more or less 50 to 60 children you fostered in your home over time. I mean, going through it over and over again, year after year. I mean, um, it's absolutely amazing. So I respect you a lot for that. So so when these children are taken away from their families, they must feel uprooted from a system, even though there might be some abuse or whatever. But they would still be near their siblings, or the place of their home, and then one fine day they're gone to another family. I mean,
Right.
what sort of problems do these children usually face?
Well, it's a very hard time. It's a very hard time because everything they've known has been taken from them. Even if they've been abused by their family members, that's their norm. That abuse is their norm. That neglect is their norm. So when they're taken from everything they've known and placed into a strange home with strange people, it's hard. There may be issues of trust. There may be issues of attachment. Maybe there's anger management issues. Maybe they have sleeping disorders. Maybe emotional anxieties. So yeah, it's very, very hard time for children. So as foster parents, we need to be cognizant of that, need to be aware of that, and just really embrace them with patience, with compassion, with time, with understanding, and with love. Because many times the kids may try to resist us, try to resist the love that we're giving them because they've been so hurt. They've been so abused, and we're strangers to them. So it takes time. It takes time.
I mean, yeah, and they might have like different tendencies as well, like behavior problems and stuff like that. So having um, these children at home, I'm sure you have a full-time job. Your wife must be working. I don't know what the situation is, but it's so tough, like having life, and then on top of this commotion, and then when you're finally able to solve them or give them the love that they need, they essentially go away. So you don't even know if what happened to them later on, like maybe 10, 15 years. It's hard to trace them. So like um, is it very common that people offer their homes to foster families in America?
No, it's not common at all. It's not common at all. There's actually not enough foster homes. There in America, in the United States, there's about 450,000 children in the foster care system, and there are not nearly enough homes. In fact, child welfare agencies are desperate for more foster parents, and that's just not America. That's in other countries as well. It's a hard time.
What are some of the in my personal experience, I worked with an orphanage. So there was this amazing lady who had taken a house, and they were not essentially, some of them were orphans, but others were just coming from very rural areas where the children has like sort of like a boarding school as well. So like there I could see that the moment they hit teens and stuff, so the things started becoming more difficult, because obviously given the aggression and the aging hormones, it's just become so difficult to control that energy at one place and all of that, right? And eventually she had to close down that project because she just couldn't really handle all of this together. And like, so she had like 100 children or something in her boarding school. So but those children were doing great. I mean, they were reading books, they were critically thinking, they had such a great experience with meeting so many people from different walks of life. So they were really great children. But but my question is, what are some of the the tips that you can tell us to how to like calm down if someone is thinking about adopting someone or whatever, or keeping a foster home? What are some of the tips that you can give me to solve children issues like, much stuff?
Well, it's a great question. First of all, it's important, I think, to understand that adoption can be hard too. And I've adopted 3 children myself. Many times after adoption, there's something known as post-adoption depression syndrome, or PAD. And that's just not only for the child, but for the adoptive parents as well. Just because a child is adopted doesn't mean it's a happy ending ever after. So I think it's important for people to recognize that, first of all. If someone's considering becoming a foster parent or bringing a child into their home that's not theirs, it's important, I think, first of all, to discuss it with your family, because it's a full-time commitment. Because you're going to have a child that's going to come into your home that's filled with anxiety, that's been traumatized. So it's important that if you're married or you have a partner, that your spouse or partner are fully committed as well as you. And if you have children, that they're committed as well. Along with that, you've got to have some type of support group, whether it's a adoptive support group or a foster care support group or your family or a faith-based organization. You've got to have some type of support group who will help you during those hard times, maybe bring you meals during really difficult when the children arrive, or maybe helping you with clothes or giving you a bit of a break when you need a little bit of a time out with shopping or whatever it might be. So I think those are the first 2 things you need to be doing. Making sure your family is committed and finding a support group. And then you need to be prepared for the children to have a difficult time. So you need to be patient with them and understanding and compassionate. And again, if you are adopting, you need to be prepared for post-adoption depression.
That sounds very hard to be very honest, but I'm sure all of the people who are doing it, I just think they're great people, including yourself. So kudos to that. So what are some of the challenges that these foster children face, and like even after like 2 years or whatever, what happens if still the parents aren't, they haven't sorted out their problems or whatever? What happens then?
Well, there's a number of things could happen. First of all, if a child should become a young adult, maybe 18 years of age in some states in America, or 21 in some other states, or maybe in other countries, 21. And what happens, they leave the foster care, they age out or they transition out. And many times it's a bad experience for them because there's no family there to help them out. So many of them become homeless. Many of them turn to drugs. Many of them turn to crime. Many of them become incarcerated because there is no family there for them. And they've just been bouncing around from foster care environment to foster care environment, or child welfare or orphanage to orphanage. So that can happen. Now, if a child remains in foster care at a young age and their family members, whether it's their mother and their father, maybe grandparents or aunts and uncles, nobody is able to care for that child, then they go up for adoption, and the foster parents often have the first option to adopt those children.
So in your opinion, what are some key factors that contribute to successful foster care placements and positive outcomes for foster children?
Well, again, you need to have a committed family, you need a support group, you need to be understanding, you need to be trained. Foster parents are often trained beforehand on how to care for children who are filled with trauma, who are filled with anxiety. Again, children may have anger management issues. They may have sleep disorders or eating disorders, which is very common for children in foster care. So they need to be foster parents need to be fully trained, fully equipped. And then they need to have a lot of patience because it's a difficult, challenging job. It's basically a 24-hour, 7-day-a-week job, if you will, caring for children in your home who are coming from a place of trauma.
What are your personal experiences with foster children like? Can you give us any stories, any examples?
Sure. It's been, I'll tell you this, it's been the hardest thing I've done. At the same time, it's been the most rewarding thing I've done as well. Every child's maybe a better person in some way. Every child's maybe a better father or a better husband or a better member of the community. I'm much more compassionate, much more patient now, and much more eager to fight for children who are in need. I've had some kids who've come through my home who are um, doing very well. Some are in college or university. Some are, um, actually, I've got a couple in college right now. I've got one who is a child welfare worker, and we're grandparents to her children. But some of them, sadly, I don't know where they're at. I don't know where they're at because when they leave our home, sometimes they go back to their family members, and their family members may not want to continue the relationship with us because we might be a reminder of their past that they don't want to remember,
Yeah.
which can be difficult.
In the case of like foster children, how can we better train people to be, foster families? Because um, it feels like the system isn't doing that great when it comes to foster children and placements and all of that. So how can society sort of help or make realize or be trained to do this?
Well, it's a great question. I think it's important to recognize this too, that not everybody can be a foster parent. It's a challenging job. At the same time, everybody can help a child in some way because it doesn't matter where you live around the world. Somewhere in your community is a child being abused. Somewhere in your community is a child being neglected. Somewhere in your community, there's a child in crisis. Doesn't matter what country, what nation, what town, what city, what state. Every community has children in crisis. So we can all take part in helping kids in crisis in some way. Human trafficking is a very, very big global issue. Child abuse is a very big global issue. So you need to recognize that maybe I can't be a foster parent, but I can help in some way. Maybe I can provide clothing to child welfare agencies, or meals, or school supplies, or hygiene items. Recognize what human trafficking looks like and how you can help stop it in your own community. Recognize what child abuse looks like, maybe within your own family, and look for that. If you are a foster parent, it's important that you continue to get training every single year. One of the things that I do here at the Foster Care Institute is we provide online training resources for foster parents across the globe so they can get continuing ongoing support and education throughout their experience as a foster parent.
That's great. And how long are these courses?
Oh, they are a little under an hour
Okay.
because each class is about an hour, each class is an hour credit.
My question is, what are the key messages or themes that you aim to convey about your foster care and parenting? Are there in those publications?
Oh, well, I have a number of different books. For example, the Foster Care Survival Guide is for somebody who is caring for children and just gives them tips on how to help the kids. My memoir, Fostering Love, One Foster Parent's Journey, is just that. It's a memoir of my own personal experience as a foster parent of 60 plus children, and gives you a little bit of insight into what that might be. So it's a book filled with a lot of emotion, humor, as well as sadness. The book, The Church in Foster Care, is a wake-up call, if you will, to faith-based organizations across the country on how they can help to create their own foster care ministry or their own foster care outreach program, if you will. So, and there's other books as well. So every book has its own kind of theme or own kind of message.
So if you were given the power to redesign or restructure the existing foster care system, how would you change it?
Oh, wow. That's a great question. To begin with, child welfare workers, not just in the United States, but across the world, are really, at this time in society, they're overworked, overwhelmed, under-supported, under-resourced, underpaid. So I would start there. I would give caseworkers more support, more child welfare agencies and child welfare workers more support, and better pay. And so when they have better support, then they can better support the foster parents who are caring for children. Because what I hear from foster parents across the globe is that they feel they don't have the support services that they need from their child welfare agency. But then again, child welfare agencies are overworked and overwhelmed. So give child welfare agencies better support so they can in turn better support foster parents. Foster parents need to be better equipped or better trained so they can care for these children right now. Right now, it's a hard time. In this post-COVID world, we're seeing an increase globally of teenage suicide and teenage depression. So more support services need to be paid for our children as well. And then for those families that are really struggling with maybe depression or drug addiction or their own trauma and anxiety, give them better support services so their children do not have to go into foster care to begin with.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, but there will always be children who. What do you think about the fact that they can take away the child? You know, the system in itself. Like, if they take a child from that system for 2 years, and then later on the family maybe doesn't want them, or doesn't feel the same connection, or isn't that hampering it as well? Like, I don't know. Shouldn't there be a better way?
There should be a better way. There absolutely should be a better way. Here in the United States, just in the United States alone, 5 million children experience domestic violence in their house. So that means we as a nation here in America are really struggling. That's just the United States. Globally, it's a tremendous issue. I mentioned earlier, human trafficking is a big global business. Well, we need to, as a global society, we need to address those issues, recognize it's happening, and address it. So many people in so many countries pretend that it's not happening because it makes them feel uncomfortable, because it's such an ugly, ugly thing. They don't want to believe that this is happening to children, so they ignore it, even though it's happening in their own community.
Yeah, that's so true. In Pakistan, I don't even want to tell you what's going on in Pakistan. It's just ugly everywhere. So I think that was it. That was all the questions I had. Is there anything that you'd want to add? Anything that I missed out?
No, I think you covered it all. I really appreciate the opportunity to talk about these things, and I'm glad that you are bringing awareness to this.
Yeah, thank you so much. And I mean, thank you for the opportunity as well, for giving out your time, and see you soon. We'll talk soon once again.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. If I could be of any help, or if you want to talk about these or other issues again, please let me know.
Sure. No worries. Thank you so much, man.